Hello, happy to be here, happy to talk to you about creativity and design. It seems to be a topic that so many of us have been touching during the time that we've had together. I think that we have these words around us a little bit about everywhere at the moment. This is just an example of a dental and skin care institutions who promises to design our smile. I don't think we have a single organisation at the moment who doesn't say that we need to be creative, or at least that they see their own need to be more creative than what they are today. So somehow these thoughts and these ideas, these words are in the air at the moment. But why is that? Is it the first time in history? Is it a totally unique phenomenon? Or is there something in the time in which we're living that actually causes this? Why creativity is so important at the moment? Look into that a little bit. Because before, a long time ago, we used to produce our own tools. We used to all have that individual possibility to think about what we wanted and be creative about our environment, the things we had around us, everything that we produced. And I think there was a good sparkle in what we did. But something actually changed. The arrival of industrialization and mechanization, production methods. There was a division between how we produce products and actually what we should produce. And somehow there also started to become a division between those who are creative and those who just execute, which of course was only part of this big revolution, but I think it's mentally something that has been working on up until now. We had William Morris, who you might know, well-known designer of the time, who was one of the first ones to start talking about, very much influenced by John Ruskin at the time, about does it take out the joy and the happiness of production if we actually start getting a division between those who are creative and imaginative and those who just produce. But this was also the time when in the mid and late 1900s, when design schools were founded in these areas, in these regions, Northern Europe, because it was really an understanding of, okay, so if we have those who produce, then we need these creative guys. How do we actually make creative people, and how do we train them? In the beginning, it was very much about understanding the need of these, but doing it through old traditions of copying and so on. So this is an example of a tile of that time that you can see, at least to me, it looks pretty much like the one that Morris did. There's a fair resemblance, at least, but also copying other ones, like old ancient statues in plaster of old goddesses. You copied, you learned, you took in the whole task of being creative in the best possible way. But again, something happened. Maybe not so nice. The First World War, which was a point in time when the entire society actually had to face new demands. The whole society was in crisis, economically, industrially, utilizing all those things that they'd learned through industrialization and mechanization, but putting them into a completely new level of challenges. And I think once the world actually came out of that experience, we were ready to be modern, to think forward, rather than to try and learn only from what had been before. And if we think about design and creativity in education, the Bauhaus was, of course, founded in 1919, a prime example of this whole new way of thinking about creativity. How can we achieve it? Walter Gropius actually had his Bauhaus Manifesto in 1919, proclaiming to think about the future. We had similar movements in Sweden here at the same time. This is when Gregor Paulsen puts out in his more beautiful everyday objects and so on. But what they really wanted to do was build a new society based on the whole new environment that they were in. And they did it doing things that we today might take for granted. It was much about daring to explore, to think forward, to do things together, to do it in a team, to be aware of the material that you're working in, the newest innovations. Also to think across borders, to be a little bit new and daring in what you do. In the Bauhaus, of course, it was all about combining art and crafts for the first time, doing it very much through what we today call studio education, where you have the best possible guy in a group with a small amount of people who tell you how it can be done, who helps you forward, who encourages you and tutors you, rather than just sitting in a mass lecture listening to someone like you unfortunately are doing to me now. But we can see that the Bauhaus put out sort of seeds of what was really still quite crucial. So the idea was the beginning was that everyone, no matter in which idea or which area of creativity they're going in, need the same fundamentals of understanding how you can think differently. But then also slowly progressing through knowing your area, knowing your particular material and so on. But it was also about having fun, about doing all these weird things that I think this was actually a theatre play about the forms of something. So it's really sort of taking it one step out and flipping out a little bit and doing and sharing things together in a different and new way. That was quite typical to them. But clearly a reaction to a societal issue. I mean, a societal case where there was a crisis and there needed to be something new. Of course, time passed, everything quite fine for some while. Something else happens. You might recognize this. Another area of great innovation in science, the Second World War. But it was clearly a time when much of the new scientific innovation really, if not took place, at least was put into execution and was tried out. And it also caused a completely new societal system within the areas that were there. They were shattered, had to be built up. People understood that we need to build something new after this. We don't want to look back. We need to be able to think beyond what we've done before. So there the answer was, again, another new school of thinking creativity, sort of in a creative way. That was the Ulm school, the Hochschule für Gestaltung in Ulm. But where the idea really was to combine not only arts and crafts, but also science and technology and the innovation into that whole process of being creative and being able to think differently. So what they did was include companies in how you think, how you are creative. They also started a lot of thinking in areas which we today take for granted, like ergonomics, thinking about the people, semiotics, what do products or services say or do, and their sense of a curricula looked slightly different because they were actually one of the first ones to really also think scientifically about how can we foster creativity in people. So they still said, yes, we need to have a shared understanding, but we also have to understand all the areas around us and include these in teams who together try to be as creative as possible. And this we could see in Scandinavia as well. It was really when, in creativity, we started putting people in the centre. Ergonomics was very popular, very sort of the scientific approaches. And of course it also changed the way we work, the whole process of trying to achieve. What Ulm really talked about was problem solving, identifying an issue, a problem, and then trying to find the best possible solution to do that. So many of the things that are done today in education do come back to areas like, or in a sort of thought leaders like the Bauhaus or the Ulm. It's still very much art-based. We sometimes think that creativity has something to do about it. But we still also teach in a studio ideological approach where we take the best possible gurus from the area to teach small groups, to get them new ideas, to help them think. Very much from the Bauhaus, we still prototype, we still try things out, we still experiment, we try to do things that we haven't done before. We don't fear of failing, which is a very important part of being creative. But also many of the working ways of where working together and learning together in interdisciplinary teams and all of this is really important. From the Ulm, we still also focus on end users when we think about how we should approach things. And we work together with companies. So this is all fine. Much of the thinking has been there for a while. But in the 1980s, something completely different happened again. We had a new shift in how we see society and how we see production. The computer. Initially, it changed how we work. Simple things like tooling, like the fact that we can imagine more options than what we had before. The fact that we can usher these ideas further in production into milling or into even making the previously mentioned prototypes becomes a lot easier when you can replicate them, when you can share your work, when you can be sure that you all talk about the same thing. And of course, it also increased internationalization. We can communicate with people completely in a different manner, in a different way that we've done before. And the whole process of being creative is something that's done over borders in a whole different way. So it did change design education a little bit and the way we work. I think design today is more and more seen as a process or creativity. It's something that more of us need to do, that we can't separate from the production itself anymore, but that's part of the way we think. It's also increasingly about not only solving problems, but actually being able of asking them, of putting them new ideas forward. This is an example of a Manouche who did his final thesis last year, noticing that in 2050 we won't have food enough for all of us. So the issue is not only about designing a new product, it's about being able to raise that question. So his solution was that in urban environments, within the population that actually causes most of the sustainability issues at the moment, the most sort of long-term solution would be that we would all be growing our grasshoppers in our own kitchen, which you might sort of, raise your eyebrows to, even though today 80% of the population already eats insects. It's not those 80% who cause the problems. But it's clearly, I think the point was not the product design, the point was to get you aware of the issues. And we've heard before, a lot of people who are now talking about this entirely new society. We talk about the creative class, how all of us need to be more creative. We talk about networks. We talk about dreams, about storytelling, about putting forward this new type of thinking. And I think that this is a reaction to the new change that has been started with the IT revolution, but I only think that we're seeing the peak of it at the moment. We have so many new things that lie ahead of us. This is an example of a project that one of our PhD students, Guido, is working on, where he's really proving the point that when everyone can produce their own products with 3D printers at home or in the workplace, the whole way that we do marketing, that we do production and all of that changes. And again, this is just part of the bigger picture. So what I'm trying to say is that if we look slightly further out, I think we can see a few things. I think we can see that clearly we need a new revolution in how we talk and train and think about creativity. That's pretty obvious. The reason why it's obvious is that we are in the middle of a big societal change at the moment. So it's not the fact that we're talking about creativity only because we think it's fun or we think it's useful or something. It's because that's the way we react when we're faced with something completely new. We can't go on in the way we've always done. So we have to be creative in trying to figure out what is the next big way to take us out of this. And the other tiny interesting detail that I found is, I think it's something that's ongoing. I don't think this is the last time our society is going upside down. So yes, we can think about how we should be creative now, but I think what's even more important is really how can we create individuals and encourage others to be so broad-minded, open-sighted, to be able to view further, that they are able to face not only this societal change, but maybe the next one, and the next one, and the one after that. So let's all think further out in the horizon. Thank you.